morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, class. Hi. Can you hear me? Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Hello. Good God. Good morning, class. Good morning. I need eyes and ears on me, please. Thank you. Oh, hi. I want to talk about Frederick William III. Supposedly lesser known of the Prussian kings in Europe, that he was born in the late 1700s, lived till the ripe old age of just right under, let's say like 67, 68, 69 years, right till about the middle of the 1800s. In Europe, it's kind of known as the time of the revolutions. But Frederick William, coming from a long lines of Fredericks, probably could understand that, because he's a very smart guy, privately tutored from the money that his militaristic father had, per se, wanting to dominate and keep dominating Europe. Yeah, he probably could have seen that coming, along with another very strong-willed emperor of the time that that era was known for. What do I call him? Monsieur General Bonaparte, something along the lines of that. So I'm just going to dive right into it. So another thing that Frederick William III was known for was naming all the Protestant churches in Prussia / Germany. He helped reform them to make it the state religion. What does that mean? Honestly, taking the final blow away from the Holy Roman Empire, along with crushing defeat by Bonaparte. A little bit after when Bonaparte was sent into exile the second time. Confused brain fart, so jump right into it a little bit more. So Frederick William III comes from a very long line of Fredericks, going way back to the, I don't know, around 800 years at the time. So I said that he comes from very militaristic, not materialistic, but very militaristic minded type like families who made their mark in Europe, with one of those Williams coming or stepping forward to be to lead the Holy Roman Empire. I might have talked about it a little bit more, but I've done a little bit of research on that. So fast forward it another 800 years. Frederick William III, his father, very militaristic minded, had one of the most I don't know the exact words to say it, but it was something along the lines of the most progressive, sophisticated army of its kind in Europe at the time. Nobody liked that army, per se. No one liked that army all the way up till, per se, like talking about this time, all the way up to the end of World War II. This little mp4 guy had his idea that he was going to take that army and he was going to try to conquer the world for himself. Where did that lead him? Well, something about a bunker and some poison that was taken. enough of that. So we'll just talk a little bit more about Frederick William III and muster our way through our little lesson for today. So basically, he literally followed in his father's footsteps. He had a major inferiority complex, according to Wikipedia. But, you know, who wouldn't have a major inferiority complex with a guy that just had like everything in the world, and he wasn't held accountable to anyone. But he had to live up to those really, really high expectations per se. But it's not really like the only time that you've ever seen somebody like an infamous person has actually come from a family that's famous for doing something, I guess, and he had a lot to stand up for, but at the same time too, that his father, he had very loose morals per se. He went to restore those morals when he came to power per se. So you can honestly say that when he was young, he was very humble. He was somewhat shy. He had no sense of self. He was still trying to figure out who he was. But at the same time, he was like very, 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 they say he was very smart like his dad, and he was also militarily minded at the time. But you had to be you had to be the best of the best at that time when the reign of Bonaparte was in France. Because you always had to keep your guard up. Because you know that Bonaparte could have struck at any time per se. And what she eventually did, so a little bit more on that in a few seconds here. So basically, when he came to take the reins of Prussia from his father, when his father died, he was prince of some little land or part of the area of what we call Germany today. He was married kind of young when he came into power. Once he became king, his wife died. He really loved her a lot. And he remarried not that much sooner after that. He went on to have 10 kids. And one of his daughters, who I'm going to say who was probably named after her mom, was promised to Alexander II of Russia. Another pattern, noticed that a lot of the czarinas of Russia all came from Prussia/Germany at the time. So, speaking of being on top of his game at the time of General Bonaparte, okay, if you're on the top of the world, you think that you're on top of your game. You think you're like the smartest, most brilliant tactician of all times on the continent of Europe. Kind of having a big head, literally having all your ducks in a row, rated G, of course. You had to be a little bit intimidated by this Bonaparte guy from France, per se. Had to keep up his guard. Always had to know what's going on around you at all times, because the French were just literally knocking at your front door, wanting everything that you own. Yeah, so in battlefields of Jena and Austerlitz, with the help of, I don't know, his Saxon cousins, these 2-3 armies met up, Jena, Austerlitz, thinking that supposed battle of wits, big heads, strong ambitions, what the future of Europe was going to look like. I hate to say it, but some of these people, some of you guys out there know what's coming up next, per se, is Bonaparte took out both of the biggest armies on the continent of Europe at this time, all within maybe like 1 or 2 days. Myself being a big fan of Bonaparte too, that he took out both armies. Both battlefields were within 20 miles, supposedly within 20 miles. Bonaparte goes in and he literally takes out, I'm going to say, Prussia at the Battle of Jena. And later on that day, Bonaparte gets on his horse and rides another 20 miles away and goes over to Austerlitz and literally comes up with a plan to take out the Saxons in Austerlitz. Boom. Okay, you've been conquered by one of the biggest, most formidable armies of all times on the continent of Europe, of course. What are you going to do? You got to save your hiney, so where are you going to go? Well, can honestly say that our friend Frederick William III, was no dummy, so he went and made a pact with Alexander I. He fled over to the most eastern side of Prussia at the time, what we would call, Poland. Today, he's took refuge and protection from Alexander I. And that at this time that he was seeking protection from his buddy Alexander I in Russia, that they were coming up with a scheme how to get back at Napoleon.